Joe Biden does it again, but do you care? They're coming for E-Dub. Warren better get ready for the hot seat. Young Republicans are pushing the party on climate change. I'm Jamal Simmons, and this is why you should care. Joe Biden is back in the hot seat over something he said. It seems like we do this story about once a week. Biden got into trouble this time for conflating the details of 3 actual stories into one compelling, even heart-tugging narrative about a heroic sailor he met in Afghanistan. At one point, Biden tells the New Hampshire crowd, "This is the God's truth," he says, "my word as a Biden." Turns out, it wasn't the God's truth. The key element of heroism in the story was about an Army soldier, not a Navy captain, and another part of the story took place when Biden was a senator, not vice president. Other details were wrong too. He just got mixed up. Biden was asked about it by Washington Post opinion writer Jonathan Capehart and tried to focus on the core meaning of the story, how courageous our men and women service members are. Okay. On this one, you're going to have to decide if you should care. This isn't the first time Joe Biden has said something that turned out to be wrong or impolitic. It's what you get with Uncle Joe. The question for voters is it worth putting up with Biden's gas to get the good stuff, the human connection, the years of service, the steady hand? I'm old enough to remember when Al Gore got in trouble because people thought he said he invented the internet. Turns out he actually never said it. But once the narrative set in, it was hard for him to escape the idea that he made things up. John Kerry was tarred as a flip-flopper with images of him windsurfing in different directions as the kicker. President Trump makes up things all the time, from crowd sizes to phone calls with foreign leaders, but it's hard to know how important voters find those things. Or maybe Democrats are just held to a higher standard. But if Joe Biden is the nominee, will Democrats have to take the Trump lies arrow out of their quiver? You tell us. The stories are popping up everywhere. Here's one headline from Axios. Warren dodging attacks, winning praise. Here's another from The Hill. Big crowds stir talk of momentum for Warren, but nobody gets a free pass when they run for president. So watch the headline for today from Politico. Warren Love Fest ending as 2020 competitors fear her rise. According to the Real Clear Politics polling average, Elizabeth Warren has jumped from 7.8% in early June to 16.5% this week. She's been battling Bernie Sanders for second place for about 6 weeks while staying out of head-to-head combat with Sanders or almost anyone else. Her sharpest jab came in the second debate when she threw major shade at former Congressman John Delaney with this remark.
I don't understand why anybody goes to all the trouble of running for president of the United States just to talk about what we really can't do and shouldn't fight for. I don't get it.
But according to today's Political story, Warren's opponents are coming for her. They're raising questions about how feasible her plans are and how she'll pay for all these ideas. President Trump is engaging too. In a radio interview with Fox News' Brian Kilmeade, he challenged her on crowd size, saying, "I have crowds many times where her crowds are." He even tweeted about it. Now, why should you care? E-Dub, what I call Warren, she hasn't really been shooting back at her detractors. But can that last? The history of presidential politics is that when people come for you, you gotta clap back or you get taken down. Debate 3 is coming up in Houston on September 12th. Let's see what happens when all the major candidates, Biden, Bernie, Kamala Harris, and Warren, are all on stage together with a few of the wild cards like Julian Castro, Cory Booker, and internet phenom Andrew Yang. Yesterday, young Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg arrived in New York City ahead of the UN Climate Summit, aiming to pressure world leaders on addressing the climate crisis. She arrived in style. She was on a pretty sweet carbon-free sailing boat, greeted by many Democratic lawmakers who welcomed her and her cause. The same day, the Trump administration proposed slashing restrictions on the oil and gas industry for methane emissions, the greenhouse gas that is a key driver of climate change. This is just one example of the political division that exists around the issue. While there's no doubt that partisanship is a huge factor on where voters stand on climate change, new research suggests age is a factor as well. Here's why you should care. If politicians are going to fix the climate crisis, Republicans have to have a plan, and maybe appealing to younger voters will move the party. According to a recent study from Globalities, the number of U.S. Republicans who worried about the damage humans cause the planet has risen by 11 percentage points since 2014, with the number of younger GOP voters aged 18 to 34 who are worried rose by 18 points to 67%. According to Pew Research, 60% of Republicans 23 to 38 years old believe climate change is having an effect on the U.S., and 36% agree humans are the cause. That's double the amount for GOP voters 52 years and older who say the same thing. And here's the kicker. Millennials are the largest generation in the country these days. They're bigger than baby boomers. If Republicans want to compete with Democrats for these voters, they're going to have to find a conservative approach to address the climate crisis. And that isn't ideological. It's just math. Thanks for watching Hill TV on YouTube. Be sure to click subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we post new videos. And head to thehill.com for all the latest political news.